Welcome to the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. I'm Mike Waters. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Rob McClanaghan. A former Syracuse basketball walk-on, Rob has become a renowned workout trainer for NBA superstars. But 2 years ago, Rob attempted suicide. Now, Rob is talking about mental and emotional health. Welcome back to another edition of the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. I'm Mike Waters, and today we have a really fantastic guest. It's former Syracuse walk-on and trainer to the NBA stars, Rob McClanaghan. How you doing, Rob?
Good, Mike. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's really good to see you too. It's usually we're able to run into each other once or twice a season at some arena somewhere.
Yeah.
Past couple of years, it's been hard with COVID.
Yeah, it has. I saw Donna down at Boston College, but that's really it.
Yeah, and I, of course, the one trip I didn't make, I don't get to see Rob in Boston. But there's a very special reason I wanted to have you on. We've talked leading up to recording this. You, of course, wrote a very compelling and revealing personal essay in the Players Tribune back in December. You talked about some of your struggles with mental health and the fact that you actually did attempt suicide a couple years ago. And boy, that hit home with a lot of folks that knew you. Of course, I knew you when you were playing at Syracuse.
Yeah.
But now, just recently, you were able to come to Syracuse University and speak to both the coaches and also a lot of the student athletes. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really, great that you did that, but also timely, because we're coming up here on the month of May, which is Mental Health Month, mental health awareness. And I'm struggling on where to start with you, Rob. I tell you what was it like for you to get up there on stage and in front of a bunch of student athletes whose shoes you were in, 18 years ago, 20 years ago? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I said to them was it was a full circle moment. For me to go up there and you go up to the stage a lot and you say, I was in your shoes at one time, but I literally was. And, so to go up there and kind of talk to them and give, listen, I was the graduate 2001. It's been a lot going on in the last 20 years, especially the last 3 or 4 years, right? So I just want to give my experience not only at Syracuse and leverage those experiences into their career, but the second part of what I spoke about was mental health. And I can't imagine what they've been going through, and kind of just get my experiences on that and how you deal with it, and to let them know, listen, this is a normal thing.
Did they know about your story in the Players Tribune, or is that part of your talk with them?
Yeah, I don't think they knew about it. I mean, I don't think they had any idea. So what I did was I discussed, like I said, how I use my relationships in Syracuse with my teammates, with my coaches, with alumni, right, the boosters, and leverage that into, help me in my career. No matter what career you did, mine happened to be sports, but it could be anything. Like Syracuse is like a cult, right? Wherever you go, there's somebody that can help you, So, no matter what city you're in, it's one of the few schools really that can say that. And, with me, I discussed that, and I went through my whole career and how great it was, right? And then I stopped and said, it's been a great life, right? You would think this is the perfect life. And I went into kind of what I dealt with the past really 10 years. And, now, especially I think with kids at that age, teenage level, kids in their 20s, this new world we live in, how tough it is, but how normal it is to, have issues mentally.
Let's back up and provide a little background to some of the listeners who don't know your full story. Mm-hmm. You're a Rhode Island high school standout. Mm-hmm. You come to Syracuse, you walk on the team. You played for 3 years. You lettered 3 years, from 99 to 01. So you played with guys like Jason Hart, Latan Thomas, Preston Shumpert, Alan Griffin, all those guys. And then after school, I know you worked around with coaching a little bit, but you really found your calling, your niche as a trainer, maybe like the premier workout guy to the NBA stars. I mean, people like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, all these guys have worked out with you. I know it started with Ryan Gomes. former Providence guy, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good life. I mean, you're flying around, you're working out NBA superstars all over the country, all over the globe.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for Steph Greenberg for a year in South Florida. And, you know, when I was down there, I met the guys at IMG Academy, where I am now, helping some guys out. And I realized, wow, you can work guys out and make money doing it. That's interesting. And it didn't really exist back then. You know, it was a guy had their guy, that was it. You didn't have like 10 guys. A guy did 15 guys. I got lucky at ABCD camp through Sonny Vaccaro. Met Kevin Love and Derek Rose there. Next thing you know, fast forward to 08. Kevin Love and Derek kept me in the draft. And then I had 7 other guys. So I had 9 guys in the top 50 in the 08 draft. And at that point, I was working for Arden Tellem, was the top agent in the world. Bob Myers was an agent. He's now the president of the Warriors, and B.J. Armstrong. And the guy that connected me with B.J. Armstrong was Troy Weaver.
Troy,
and
former SU assistant.
Yeah. So without that connection, I don't know if I would have been there, quite honestly. So Troy helped me out. A lot of guys helped me out. Coach helped me out. And you know, from there, I had those guys, and I ended up getting Wall, Curry, Durant, Horford. And obviously, the better they did, the better I did, right? So, yeah, it's one of those things that kind of just happened. Like you said, I traveled the world with these guys. And I've been to Asia 6 times with Steph Curry. I've been all over Europe with KD. Been to Asia with Kevin, Derek, you name it. So, it's quite the life, quite the whirlwind, quite a fast track, right? So I never had time to really decompress or, you know, really just deal with myself.
So when did the mental struggles start to come on? And I've read the Players Tribune story. You mentioned a few life instances that might have been a trigger. Yeah,
I explained to the kids, student athletes too, there's always a trigger. There's always something, right? And I think for me, is when my father died, November 1st, 2011. And it was crazy because that's usually my down time of year, November, which was the first week of the season. I kind of just sit and watch games and relax a little bit. That year was a lockup year. So he ended up dying, and I dealt with it for like 4 or 5 days at home. I dealt with everything. My sister was 8 months pregnant. And then I just went right back to LA to train my guys in LA. And I never really, I guess, grieved and went through that process. And it happened very fast. He died really quick. So, you know, to me, that was a trigger. I was young. You know, my dad just retired. I looked up to my dad. So it happened so fast. I never grieved. And I think I kind of just suppressed it over the years. And it kind of just led to other things like depression and anxiety.
That Players Tribune article where you described all of your struggles and also how you masked them. So a lot of these superstars that you're working with, they have no idea what Rob McClanaghan's going through, and then how it culminated with the suicide attempt. What caused you to want to lay all of this personal stuff out to the public?
Yeah, good question. A few things. I mean, first of all, I knew what people were going through because I saw it. You know, when Kevin wrote the article, Kevin Love, 2017, same Players Tribune article, and the story is very parallel. It's kind of crazy. So he hit home to a lot of people. This is pre-COVID, obviously. So it was when that came out, I was almost not mad at him, but I said, how come you didn't tell me? You know, and he's like, well, that's the point of the article, right? To let people know I didn't want to tell anybody. But it's okay. But I didn't want to tell anybody. He said, same with me, because, you know, you're this alpha kind of male. You have this, you know, this personality. Like, he was a world champion, Olympian. I was training those guys. So I had to, like, be that kind of guy. Yeah. So I don't want to so often all that, right? So when I dealt with my stuff, you know, I talked to Kevin about it and some other people, and I knew I had a platform to do it. You know, I'm not a celebrity like Kevin, but I had people that kind of knew me and looked up to me, what have you. And quite honestly, no one knew I was going through this. It was probably a handful of people. So I figured this is the way to do it. But the main reason I did it is I had 3 kids. I have 3 kids. My daughter's 8, my boy twins is 7. And I knew one of them statistically will go through something like this. Maybe hopefully not like this, but something mentally, right? So especially, you know, this post-COVID stuff with the isolation and not having a college experience, your regular school experience. My kids didn't experience school without masks until like a month ago. I knew I had a responsibility to them. And, if one of them does have something going on when they're teenagers, let's say, I want them to know, listen, it's all right. Dad went through it too. Super dad went through it too, right? So if I looked at it like that, and also I just knew that there's still this stigma, and I see what's going on. I mean, we saw 3 girls in big time colleges commit suicide in the last 6 weeks. Wisconsin.
Yeah. There was a girl at Stanford, a girl from Wisconsin, and a girl down at James Madison. And I was going to bring them up in a little bit because I wanted to get your, how those things hit you. But so continue though about.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess I wrote it because I wanted people to know, like I told the student athletes, hey, listen, whatever you're feeling, it's normal, right? And it's okay. And as long as you know it's normal and talk about it, take care of yourself, it will get better. It might not go away. It's not going to ever go away, but it will get better. But if you hold it in like I did for years and years, it can lead to really bad things.
You knew Kevin Love, who had come forward with his struggles. You were mad at him for not talking to you about it. Then when you're going through your struggles, you could have reached out to Kevin. You mentioned your sister. I read in that story, your sister's a psychologist.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard when you're going through that why is it so hard to reach out, especially when it seems to me you had at least 2 people who would have been completely understanding?
Right. Oh, for sure. Again, you have this, for me, I'm this alpha male, right? I don't want people to think I was soft and all that. And also I think you look at it like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to bother them with that, and I think a lot of people do. I think that people that now reach out to other people, I think you have to look out for it, and it's small little tiny things. And I think I was doing that. I can't, recall, but I'm sure I did. Yeah. And people might have been like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine," something like that. Yeah. It wasn't their fault. It was me kind of being too subtle about it. It was my fault. So, right. Yeah, I think it was just not wanting to bother people, kind of want to handle it myself, but also thinking it's not that big of a deal. Like I didn't know how bad it was until it got really, really bad.
When you go and talk to kids, like recently when you came to Syracuse University and you talk to the student athletes here, do you talk to them about how hard it is to reach out and how important it is that if they're in that situation that they need to reach out to somebody and maybe not be subtle?
Yeah, no, it's the first thing I said to them. I said, listen, doesn't have to be a therapist right away. You talk to a family member, a friend, just get it off your chest, talk to somebody about it initially. Mm-hmm. And then, I think everyone should see a therapist. I mean, if you're going through something or not, because if you just talk about stuff, it just helps, right? So I told the student athletes, listen, it's whatever you're feeling, it's fine. It's normal, especially now, post-COVID. Yeah. What those kids went through college, I can't imagine. I really can't. Having no fans and things like that, and just walking on campus with no one around, doing distance learning in their dorm room with no one in there. So whatever. I told them whatever you're going through is normal, number one. Number two, yes, talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. And number 3, listen, there's this stigma out there that's hopefully slowly going away. And I told them, whatever you are going through, whatever it is, anxiety, depression, just laziness, just be there for each other, because, and I told the coaches, there's a lot of signs, whether it's hopelessness, negativity, change your diet, and men especially being irritable is a big one. I told them this, look out for these things and just pull a kid to the side privately, because, you don't want to do this publicly, and just give, hey, I'm here for you. That's all. And go from there.
When you spoke to the students, I mean, we're talking every student athlete at Syracuse, right? Or just about? Mm-hmm. Was that big of a crowd?
Yeah.
What was the reaction? What was the feeling that you were getting from them?
Yeah, it's a good question because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, listen, it was probably the nicest day they said they had there in 2 years. It was 82 degrees. It's a Sunday. It's the end of the semester, right? It's maybe one of the last weekends kids are hanging out. So I'm thinking, first of all, no one's going to be there. But I realized later on that it was mandatory for everyone to be there. So I was like, oh, man, they're not going to want to be here. This is going to, So, but initially when I started talking about the players I trained, whatever, caught their eye a little bit. But then when I went into the mental health stuff, And I told the AD and a couple of associate ADs, I said it was crazy. Like their phones put down and they just looked at me. It's almost like they were like all going through something, almost like they hit home, but no one's on their phone. Everyone's like staring at me way more than they were when I was talking about training LeBron, like they were just glued in. And so you could tell some of these kids were going through something because they were dialed in. And I went over the amount of, time. And then when I got done, we didn't really do a Q&A because I told them any question they had, they're not going to do publicly. They're just not. And I get that. I didn't look at me. I didn't. So I said, anybody wants to see me after privately, I'll be over here. There's a line of like 50 kids.
Really?
50 kids. And I would say about 25% of them pulled me to the side. Can we talk over here privately?
Oh.
And no one really, obviously no one gave me like crazy stories. I would have reported it, but it was more like, I'm going through some stuff. Like, how'd you deal with this? And this and that. So it was there. And this is only people that came up to me. Who knows who didn't want to come up to me, right? And I got a lot of emails, a lot of LinkedIn hits, and I responded to everybody. But like again, no one gave me like crazy stories, but it was more like, I get it, I get it, and thank you for coming out. So the reaction was very overwhelming.
We worry about kids at that age, teenagers, early 20s anyway. The college environment's got a lot of pressure. But beyond that, the student athlete or just the athlete in general, because we've seen a lot of high profile athletes recently talk about their mental health. Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, a whole bunch of others. Did you find that the student athlete is actually maybe more, I don't know how to phrase it, prone or susceptible to, these kind of emotional or mental issues?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, in a sense where, listen, I was a student athlete. Like I said, I didn't play a lot, but I had a jersey. But I had all the same responsibilities.
Now, hold on one second. You were 6 of 13 from 3-point range and for your career.
I started 3 for 3. My senior, led the country. Don't forget that. It was a known thing. Coach Boeheim busted my chops on. But the responsibilities are still there, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, no matter what sport you're in, Division I, that level. I mean, you don't have. I mean, at basketball, you don't have a spring break. You don't have a winter break. You don't have a Thanksgiving break. You don't go for Christmas really.
Right.
And you're stuck on South Campus alone. And on top of during the school, you have classes. You travel. You land at 4 a.m. You go to class at 8. You practice at 3. It's a lot. And then you want to have a social life. You want to keep in touch with your family. It's just you want to get good grades and make your parents proud. So I get it. I get the overbearing of it. I didn't feel that pressure like some of these unfortunate girls do have that we've heard about. But I think it's also different what they're going through. And again, another reason I did this article is for, like I said, for my kids, especially these teenage girls, what they're going through. It really worries me. And the pressure of social media. And do I have enough likes? Do I look good? Do I have enough followers? It's a lot for the am I skinny enough? Whatever it is, and it's bad. And if you're not invited to a party, and you see the party on Instagram, like why did I get invited? And it really hurts these kids. And it's a real thing that social media. You got to be careful of it. You got to be careful of it.
Your kids are still young. My kids are older. You and me should have a talk about daughters.
Yeah.
And what's lies ahead for you.
Yeah, I wore a shirt all summer at the beach that DADD, Dads Against Daughters Dating. And every time I saw another dad, he's like,
You mentioned the social media for like a teenage girl, but for the athlete, some of the stuff that these kids see on social media where people are talking about them and just running. Do any of the student athletes talk to you about that? About the haters, the people that just, this player stinks, that player should transfer, or that player who did transfer, good, he sucked.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, a couple of student athletes did mention that to me, of how, if you lose games, and listen, this is not the best year for Syracuse athletics, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of them felt that pressure of not winning, and you heard about it in the media, obviously, and on top of that, not having fans there for a couple of years was tough. So, yeah, definitely the haters out there, you read about it, we all read about the NBA stuff and the haters and guys responding and all that, but it happens, on social media too. You get tagged once, that gets retweeted. That you had a bad game, you're terrible. How you get a scout? All this stuff. So that will add up, and kids will suppress that. Sometimes it leads to really bad things.
You were this big, strong, athletic trainer to the stars, working out guys like KD and, like we said, Russell Westbrook and all the others. What was those guys' reaction when you came forward with your struggles? I want to know.
Yeah,
KD or not Kevin Love, because we get Kevin. He's a little different. He's been through it.
Well, it's funny because that was the week before. It came out December 22nd. That whole week prior to that, I was with Steph Curry a lot because he had broken the record in the Garden, the 3-point record. I was there with him and after. And then I went home to Rhode Island. He kind of followed that path because they played with Celtics 3 days later. So I got dinner with him the night before in Boston as well, and then went to the game. So I was with him, 4 days and 4 to 5 days that whole week prior, not bringing it up.
You didn't mention the articles coming out?
I did not. And I didn't mention to anybody.
Okay.
And I would have, that was kind of his week, and the record that he broke. So I didn't dare do that week. So anyway, I didn't bring it up. And then it came out, and about the day it came out, a day later, he texted me. And, I can't believe it, but he was more, not mad I didn't tell him, more proud that I came out. And again, he has 2 daughters, and we talked about that and the pressures of this day and age. And yeah, people were just shocked. People, my family, my friends. But the crazy thing, a lot of people that reach out to me that didn't know about it, that were close to me, reach out to me saying they had same issues. So, and someone very close to me had a very bad issue, and I'm getting them some help. So it was kind of crazy how, they weren't mad that I didn't tell them. They were more like, all right, now that you did, I can tell you something. So it was really crazy.
In addition to the student athletes at Syracuse, when you came here, you had a separate time where you talked with the coaches.
Yeah.
What was that any different? Like the reaction from the coaches, or what you said to them, or what they wanted to know?
Yeah,
was that different than what the student athletes wanted to know?
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to them more, how to help the student athlete. And listen, I told them it's probably half the people in this room are going through something too. But I said, let's talk about who you can help, and hopefully you can help yourself hearing this. But they had a lot more questions, and they were definitely dialed into it. And their main questions were, how can I tell? What are the things? And I just told them, some things that I went through, and how you could have told if you knew me at that time. And I also been studying this a long time now, for the past few years, going through it. So I kind of have, researched it. And I just told them, like I just told you, just negativity, changing diet, irritability, hopelessness, maybe changing attitude, not caring at all, isolation, things like that. I just said, look for it, and don't just assume they're going through something, but pull someone to the side. Hey, I've noticed, you lost some weight. I noticed, you don't talk to anybody. What's going on? Or you're very negative, or you feel helpless, whatever it is. And I said, pull a kid aside, ask them privately in the office, not in front of anybody, and it could help. You do it to 20 kids, one's gonna say something. You do it to one kid, he might not. But don't be afraid to approach these kids before it's too late. But it's hard because they are, adults. So you don't want to cross that line, and you also want to make sure that if the kids do come out and say something, they're not afraid of losing playing time or being soft, things like that.
Right.
They need to know that. They need to know that.
Is this presentation that you did at Syracuse University something that you're going to repeat and do at other schools? Because it sounds to me like other schools should be jumping right on this. If it's not to have Rob McClanaghan come, they got to find somebody else that would be.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I had a 5-hour drive home, and I called a lot of coaches I knew. I called Frank Martin. I called Hop. I called Eddie Cooley, and I said, listen, this hit home, I think, pretty well. And I said the same to you, said. It doesn't have to be me, but I think this is a very important topic, needs to get approached. Because listen, like I told the coaches at Syracuse, we don't know. Like every study they do is 10 years. So we're not going to know for another 7 to 8 years what COVID really did to these kids percentage-wise. We're not going to, I'll tell you, it's going to be mind-boggling.
We've talked a lot about what you told to the student athletes and the mental issue and everything, but Rob McClanaghan continues also back in your job as a pro trainer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That little fear that maybe some of these NBA guys wouldn't want to be around, working out with that didn't happen. These guys they want to work with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm still doing it. Still loving it. Down at IMG now, working with some guys. Was all into the playoffs last night. I missed a game. So yeah. I mean, listen, I've always been a trainer first. I think a few years I might start to slowly shut it down a little bit. I've been traveling now over 20 years across the world. It's very tiring. I mean, I was in Syracuse 2 days ago. Drove 10 hours round trip. Did another talk in Rhode Island. Got on a 6 a.m. flight down here and worked guys out by 11. So. Yeah. I enjoy it. I like it. Keeps me going. But I have 3 kids now, and doing the speaking stuff. Who knows if I can help people? That's what I want to do. And Syracuse was really a good talk, and they did a heck of a job. John Wildhack reached out to me right away, and we set it up pretty fast. And he knew it was very important. He had told me he can kind of sense are going through something, and we had a mutual friend, Bob Iger. And we just said, let's do this. This is a very important thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah, just dropping names like Bob Iger. That's good.
I knew that. No.
Rob, listen, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And this wasn't the usual Inside Syracuse Basketball podcast subject and everything, but I think it's an important one. I think you were very brave to speak about your struggles and the attempted suicide and all that in the story that you wrote for the Tribune. So, you got my respect with that one. I'm glad that was the one thing that you apparently have failed at in your life, because I can't imagine you not being here with us.
Yeah.
You're a terrific guy, and I know you're a terrific dad. You got to stick around for those kids. Exactly. I'm glad you're turning this around and helping others.
Yeah. That's the goal. Yeah.